Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to another BG Bio. I'm Caleb, or Duban, as I'm known in the Discord server, and I'll be your host this evening. As always, I'm excited to have you join us. Tonight, we're going to be doing another one of our Fresh Faces series, where we get to spend some time chatting with a member who has joined roughly in the past year. We just will broaden the definition of fresh to include an entire year. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. So without any further hoopla from me, let's go ahead and get started. Starting as ever with the easiest questions I will ask you this evening. What is your name and what are your pronouns?
I am Drew, DrewTyrell on the server because I was a nerd in high school when I made my Discord. And my pronouns are he, him, his.
Perfect. And what are you going to be playing on the stream this evening?
So I'm playing Total War Warhammer 2. So it's like a strategy game. There's like smaller battles that will take place differently. I'll probably do one or two as we go through this. And this is just the larger campaign map. I'm playing as a species of mutant rat people, kind of.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, so we'll be starting tonight's show with my old go-to, where I ask a series of rapid-fire questions. Answer them as quickly as you can. Don't put too much thought into it. There will be a few breaks where I give you a moment to catch your breath. So, are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Take a deep breath. And what's the best ice cream topping?
Hot fudge sauce.
What's your favorite mixed drink?
I like cranberry vodkas and similar things.
Which is better, pie or cake?
I'd say it depends, but I like cheesecake specifically. But it depends how you make it, because my mom's apple pie is really good. But in general, I prefer cake.
I will tentatively accept that answer. Which is better, donuts or bagels?
Bagels.
As far as stoves go, do you prefer gas or electric?
Gas.
Do you have a favorite appetizer?
Appetizer. I can just go with, I like which you don't find too much anywhere, but I like rice balls. So you can get like, if you go to like a nicer Italian place, you can get this ball of, basically it's like a ball of rice and cheese and meats that they fry, and then you can cut it open with sauce.
Okay, cool. Well, we've gotten to our first break. I just want to say to all the cake stands in the chat, your allegiance has been logged and I will not forget. All right, so take a deep breath and we will start into our next set. What's your favorite color?
Red.
What meme best describes you?
Meme. Oh, that's a good one. Oh. Describes me. I can tell you my favorite is like, I like of course the guy turning away or the car driving off onto a side. We use that one a lot at work, where it's just us pivoting onto something else instead of going the normal way that makes sense.
Good choice.
So I guess
toilet paper. Yeah, it's good. Toilet paper, over or under?
Over.
Okay. Who's your favorite drag queen?
That's a good question.
Quickly as you can.
I know. Oh, sorry. Quickly as I can. Let's go with Gigi, because I watched last week.
Perfect. Barring COVID, if you could go anywhere in the world for a visit tomorrow, where would it be?
Probably somewhere warm. So maybe back to southern Italy. That's nice. It's warm.
Who's your favorite animated character?
Animated? See, I really like the professor in Futurama.
Okay. What's the most annoying kind of bug?
Annoying kind of bug. Those beach mosquitoes that hurt a ton when they bite you. They're like greenish.
Gotcha. All right. Another quick spot to take a breath here, and then we'll launch into our last set, which I think this one is going to be my favorite set today. So I'm looking forward to it. So take a deep breath. All right. And what's the cutest board game you've ever played?
The cutest. I'm not playing too many cute ones. I'd say just probably Exploding Kitten.
Okay. What's the ugliest board game you've ever played?
One that we had to make up for class because I took a class in college where we had to make up games.
Fair enough. What's the best video game console?
Ooh, I'd say Switch right now for me, just because it has a lot of titles you can't get anywhere else.
All right, that's good. What do you play? Support, tank, or DPS?
I'd say mostly DPS, although I do support sometimes.
Fair enough. What's the best MOBA?
Oh, wow. I'm still gonna have to say League and piss you off.
Oh, wrong answer.
I know.
Which genre is best? RTS, grand strategy, or hybrid?
I generally play more grand strategy, but I do like the hybrid as well.
Okay, perfect. You are playing one of the hybrids tonight. So that does end our rapid fire questions. I will remember that you have incorrectly selected a MOBA, but we'll just take that under advisement and I'll file it away. Just always
I'll
filing things away up here.
I'll expect the unfriend request to come through.
All right. So now we can get a little bit more serious. We'll sort of drop in. Just a reminder to the Twitch chat. I don't think I said this in my intro. If you have any questions that you want to ask Drew, go ahead and throw it in the chat whenever it comes up. And if it's appropriate, I'll add it when I can. The chat does move very quickly these days, so if I miss it, I promise I still love you. I can't read everything though. I'm a slow reader. All right. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about you. I will shelve my postmodernism tonight, and we can just say that the best place to start a story is at the beginning. So where were you born, and where did you grow up?
So I was born technically in Salem, but in North Shore of Massachusetts. Actually, my mother likes to make way too many jokes about witch hospitals. But basically, so I grew up pretty much my entire life there. So in that area, so north of Boston, Massachusetts, not New Hampshire.
Gotcha.
I guess it makes sense that Salem, New Hampshire would have a hospital. Uh,
Fair
so
enough.
that's where I pretty much grew up. Yep.
Cool. Who all was in your household growing up?
Pretty standard nuclear family. So me, my mother, brother, and father. So that was pretty much it. A lot of my father's side of the family lived very close nearby. Like my aunt lived next door and would butt in decently often without being invited. So that was, I guess, fairly common as well. My grandmother very much liked to just show up uninvited and be like, I went to the grocery store and saw something I thought you'd like, so here you go. My mom would be like, stop buying the cookies.
I think that's a standard grandparent-parent fight. So I empathize. What was your family like? Can you describe them a little bit?
Sure. So my family owns a funeral home. So that was a significant portion of my life and early existential crises, or whatever you want to call them. I think that covers that. Let's see. My dad is Italian, loud. My mom is Irish, also kind of loud sometimes. So it's very loud. My brother is, though, actually fairly quiet. He's actually going to be trained to be a fireman. So that's what he's doing with his life. My mother was briefly a cryotherapist before COVID set in, but she's like kind of like it was more of a job to do stuff rather than for income. So she's kind of just doing nothing now and is super bored because my brother is technically at home, but he's like out a lot. So she basically is just home alone all day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What is a cryotherapist?
So basically, she would put ice, like she had like ice tools, like that sounds weird, like they're little like freeze guns kind of that you use to um, basically it's supposed to help you feel better, like help you recover from athletic stress and things like that. Like
Gotcha.
if you were hurt yourself or if you're in recovery, it's like an additional like augmentation to normal therapy. It's also kind of some people just like to do it after they work out if they're richish.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough. So tell me a little bit. What were you like as a kid? What sort of things did you like to do?
So I was pretty probably like more obviously gay in hindsight than normal. I was pretty nerdy, so I was into like books and stuff. Didn't really like any of those sport things that my parents, not too aggressively, but when I was younger, pushed on me. They got over that kind of pretty fast, so that was good. Um, Other than that, I was a little obnoxious, but also a little like overly mature. Like I was the one who was like, "This is a terrible." Like whenever someone wanted to do something like stupid kid stuff, I'd be like, "This is a terrible idea. You're just gonna get yourself hurt." And I'd be like, "Shut up!" Like I was that kid.
Gotcha. So do you
Like I
think you
wouldn't
were?
tell anything, but I would be like,
Gotcha. Fair enough. Where did you go to elementary, middle, and high school? All on the North Shore, all in the same
yeah. So
area?
elementary school, I went to local public school. Um, Middle school was, let's see, middle school was and high school were a private Catholic school that was nearby. That was fun. Not the worst, but like kind of more like not acknowledging that gay people exist rather than like actively trying to hunt them down, as I've heard from some other people. So I guess in that regard, it's was better than what some other people have experienced. Let's see. I
Gotcha.
think other than that, yeah, other than that, it was pretty okay. Like, and then junior and senior year, we got a new headmaster who was kind of a fascist, and all the teachers hated him. And it was kind of a running joke that the teachers aren't allowed to say they hate him because if they do, they get fired immediately and without mercy. Several were. So it
Fair
was
enough.
fun.
What sorts of things did you do in high school? Did you participate in extracurriculars or?
So I did a little theater especially in middle school and into early high school, but I switched that out for more like academic decathlon and math team stuff. Basically, in middle school, I kind of did a little of both, and then they kind of were too much to do together. I took. I like to hold the record, which I don't know if I do anymore, for taking the hardest curriculum ever at the school. I did. I was by no means the best student. Like I was pretty good, but like they were. But it was like kind of like you took a masochistic course of like all the worst possible classes and the most advanced classes and things like that. Um, People are enjoying math team. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
So like I took 10 APs in high school, which like at the time was like really high. I don't know how much it's or whatever since then.
Sure. No, I think 10 AP courses is a lot for anyone. If anyone in the chat wants to tell me they took more than 10 AP courses, they can do that. But I'm going to guess we're going to get a no from that. Feels like a lot. I mean, I don't know. I'm older than you, so maybe my knowledge is outdated. Fair enough. What came after high school for you? What did you do next?
So I went to WPI for college. So that's an engineering school out in Worcester. So that was pretty good. I joined Alpha Phi Omega, which is a co-ed service fraternity. So we don't do normal service. We don't do normal frat things like have parties and stuff. We're mostly like about doing charity work. We do fun things too, but they're more akin to like movie or game nights than like actually like having a real full party with a bunch of people. So that was more my speed. Not that I'm saying I didn't go to any parties, but I didn't really want to be like that invested in having to go to them or anything like that. But I thought it was a really fun experience. So
Sure, that makes sense. What did you study while you were in college?
Computer science, although I was undecided to start. And after I decided on doing computer science, the rest, I had a lot of like decisions on what else to do because I had like a lot of credits and stuff, and I didn't really want to graduate college too early. So so at first I was like, okay, I'll double major in game design. That someone told me that, oh yeah, companies hate that because it makes it look like you wasted half your time in college instead of taking other classes that are more useful. I was like, oh, I didn't ever actually want to go into the gaming industry. Maybe it was just more for like hobby's sake to like do on the side, because
Sure.
the gaming industry is like terrifying for any of you who are like related to it may know. It's just really high pressure and really like long hours, stuff like that.
Yeah. I
Um,
have heard that as well. Um, I was just going to say we did get one person tied for number of AP courses taken. So shout out to Monster Ham for that. If anyone wants to claim the trophy of a greater number, just let me know. Um, so you started out undecided. What sort of tipped the needle to computer science? What took you there?
so I did take the intro class for that. So it's an engineering school. So it was kind of, I had a few things in mind. So some of the things I was thinking of were either doing like, let's see, like something either like biological or chemical or that. It's kind of like based on what I liked in high school. So I was really good at microbiology, but like am terrible with anatomy, partially just because I hate like I'm terrible at dissect. Like I'm not super squeamish. Like I dissected animals just fine, but I don't think I could like really work on a person who's alive. Family business made me. I have worked on people who are dead, so I didn't really want to have to
Fair enough.
do that. So
It's
um,
reasonable.
I think so. Again, in the end, I wound up just kind of like taking the courses, realizing that I like being able to program things, and we weren't at the stage where we could program biological things really effectively yet. So that's what I wanted to.
Fair enough. That makes sense. So you've referenced the family business a couple of times. Is there any expectation that one of you, that you or your brother will take it over, or is it just like, is it generational, or is it just what your parents have done?
So I don't really know for sure. Like I think it was kind of from me from a young age. It was kind of or young-ish age, I should say. Like it was pretty clear that I was like fairly smart and like could do if I wanted to, like I could do other really well and successful like career paths. And no one in my family really ever pressured us into that. Like we did it as like summer jobs kind of, but sometimes
Sure.
it went throughout the school year as well. It to the exact extent kind of depended on what else I had going on, which was nice. A lot of the work is kind of for funeral service. It's kind of ad hoc. Like we have like six-ish full-time employees and then like 10 part-time ones that kind of like it's basically like it's like if you want to come and do this job, you can come and do it. And then a lot of those people have other either full or part-time jobs or are retired, um, or at least were when I was there. So I haven't worked there in years, but I presume it's roughly the same.
Gotcha.
So that was kind of how that works. Yeah.
Fair enough. Um, Helen Thier asks in the chat, is anyone else interested in the family business? So you've said you're not really interested in picking it up. Is your brother? Is somebody else?
As of right now, it doesn't seem like anyone. So my father does have a sister, but she doesn't have any kids and or a spouse, and we don't expect any of that to happen. She's older than my father, so
Sure.
she's not. Yeah. So it's kind of we just think that we don't know what's really going to happen. It's possible that my brother like or I will like rebound or like change our mind fully, or
Sure.
like worst case we sell it or something.
Sure. No, I think that's reasonable.
But I don't know what's going to happen when my parents decide to retire.
Yeah.
So
Well,
or
that's
my
fair.
father.
Fair enough. So what do you do for work now?
So I am a software engineer at Wayfair. So um, but I'm in transportation. So I connect systems together for all our different transportation systems. Mostly I work with the driver app and other systems currently. So that's the app our drivers use for every type of trip. So if it's like from a supplier to a warehouse, warehouse to warehouse, warehouse to customer, and returns. Oh, I guess someone else is there too. But that's what I do. I really hope they don't remember me, because we have a running joke in engineering that it's like, be very careful about who you let know, like who you tell your email to in operations, because people like just bug you with small problems that you cannot fix because they just think you can, because you have access to everything, and it's like, I can't fix this for you, and they don't like that answer.
Fair enough. So where do you see your career going from now on? Are you working your way up to a particular dream job? Is what you have now the dream job? Are you still figuring it out? What's the deal?
Yeah, so right now I'm level 2 software engineer, as they call it. So I've been promoted once since I joined. I worked there as an internship and then joined after college. So what that means is I basically got my job right away, went right into it. I didn't have to go through a lot of the training and stuff. And I don't want to say it fast tracked me for promotion, but it helped me. Like, I had 3 extra months under my belt. So it was a little bit, I got it. I'd say like the lower end of average. Like, it wasn't like extremely early or anything. It was a normal time span to get promoted. So right now I like what I'm doing. I think I'd like to go at least one level higher and be able to kind of work at a more lead position. But I'm also not like discontent or anything. Like, I'm pretty happy with what I do and what I'm compensated with and all that.
Fair enough. So I'll pivot a little bit because this is an LGBTQ plus server. I try to ask some questions about identity every time and sort of what impact identity has on people's lives. I think that can be really helpful to framing sort of our position. What are some of the most important aspects of your identity to you? What do you think are some descriptors you might use for yourself?
Okay. Let's see. I like to think that I'm pretty, I'm gay. I'm pretty much a cis male. I think that I view my identity as being gay as fairly important, but not all encompassing. For example, in college, there was an alliance thing, but I went to a few of their major events, I guess you could call them, but I never really was like super active or went to like weekly meetings or anything like that. So it's an important part of I guess it's an important part, but not like the most important aspect of my identity.
Sure. Fair enough. You talked about what was it? Your dad being Italian, your mom being Irish. Do I remember that right? Do those feature as important parts of your identity as well, or is that just sort of something that you know?
So my mother's side, it's mostly a joke and a casual thing. Like, my mother really likes corned beef, and the other 3 of us hate it. Or I shouldn't say hate. Like, don't really have anywhere near the level of love for it as she does. And it's just kind of a running joke that every year on St. Patrick's Day, she has an excuse to make it and make us all eat it, even if we don't really want it. We kind of all accept it. I don't know, but that's kind of it for the Irish side. She's also pretty mixed. Like, my grandmother, her being her mother, her family's been in the Americas for a very long time. Like, I think they used to live out west in like Ohio or something, like her parents. So they were out there and then back out east. We don't really know that much about it, to be completely honest. And then my father's side is Italian, and it's a little bit of a bigger deal. We're not superly obsessive about it, but my grandmother does like cook a lot of food, and like we have like taboo against canned sauce that comes in a jar. Like, my mother said that like it was in there. They had like a wedding agreement thing. So, and in that wedding agreement, they literally had something like they weren't going to have that in their marriage. Like, my father had that in there. Like, this is kind of a list of like things. I don't know, but it was kind of weird, but that was just kind of a joke. So there's a few little things like that. Like I was taught to make like homemade pasta and stuff growing up, but nothing super. We're not like super Italian or super into it, or like obviously my mother's not Italian at all, so it's not like we're one of those families like you have to marry someone who's the same, who's also Italian or anything like that.
Fair enough. So relating to the gay identity specifically, did you have a formal coming out? What did that look like for you?
So that's actually kind of funny because so I did tell my parents, and my father had knew because somehow some of my photos all good. Well, they were all PG, but me with like some guy I want, like I wouldn't even say a boyfriend, I want a few dates with together, like had synced to the computer or something. Like it was, and it was like or something, and like kind of new or something. And my mother was like, "How dare you have not told us sooner?" I'm like, "Thanks for being the victim, mom." Clearly, she's over dramatic sometimes, and we're fairly religious. I guess that kind of goes with funeral home to some extent, but they're not like they're liberal religious. Like we're Catholic and go to Catholic church, but even the church itself is pretty like liberal and no one cares. Like there's, I feel a lot of the Catholic church in Massachusetts is fairly liberal. Not all of it, but a lot of it is. So
Sure. So, their reactions aside from being cross that you hadn't told them, it sounds like otherwise they took it pretty well. Is that accurate?
yeah. I don't know, I think my dad processed for a little while, but it wasn't anything. There was never any negativity or anything. I wasn't super worried, although just like, okay, we're gonna wait a little bit before to figure out how we're gonna tell your grandparents. And then one of my cousins somehow brought it up to them, and like my dad was like, "Of course they did." My cousin somehow like on social media or something found out before like my grandparents did that I was gay, which is fine, whatever.
Gotcha. Fair
Oh, that's
enough.
another thing. My parents have like no social media pretty much. My mom has a few now because I think her friends made her get it. But until recently, she basically had nothing. And
Gotcha.
I could kind of put anything on social media and they would never find it. It was always, I loved that fact.
Reasonable enough. Did you have a formal coming out amongst your friends, or was it just something that you always told people or were open about?
My friend group was all of the non-white cisgendered people at the Catholic school, basically. Um, it was pretty, that sounds terrible. And it's not 100% true, but I do want to say the high school was, oh, I should have said that. I came out like roughly senior year of college. Friends are like at the early points, parents at the end. But they were like, my school was like 95% white. And then there were very small amounts of other ethnicities in there. It was pretty bad in that regard. There was a point where we had a few Chinese exchange students, and the yearbook committee put one of the a girl who is Korean and has lived in America her entire life as a Chinese exchange student. Her mother was very murderous. That afterwards, she was really offended, which is fair. Like,
yeah.
I think the school had, I don't know if the school put out a big apology or just apologized to her in particular, like to them in particular, but it was because I was close friends with her. So this was like, she was like there was many, they were not very good at addressing issues like that. Most of the teachers were pretty liberal, but there were a few who weren't. And there was no like curriculum wide push to like include any of those like, race or gender issues, I guess you could say, like those type of issues. We did have a social justice course, and I did cover some things, but it's a religion course. It's like social justice and ethics, but I have to say that one was pretty decent at like not being super Catholic-y, but still was not the best.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. So we can pivot a little bit and talk maybe a little bit about the Boston Gamers specifically. Do you know roughly how long you've been a part of the Gamers?
I think I looked this up a little while ago because I was curious. I think it was late February of last year, so almost 11 months.
Gotcha. How did you find out about BG? What made you want to join?
Honestly, I think I wound up in the Facebook group like years ago, and I was kind of just I was looking around, and I had like also there's a Facebook and Discord for the larger like kind of international gamer Discord, which some people probably I'd say a good amount of people in this group probably know exists. But it was like it's so overwhelming. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go for the smaller one, and hopefully it's I wasn't really expecting super small, and I think the amount of active people is like a manageable amount where you recognize probably at least half of the people, if not more, that you see on a day-to-day basis, or at least I do at this point.
Sure.
So that's pretty nice, and that's what I was looking for and why I joined at this point. I had graduated college. A lot of my high school friends no longer live in the area, and I still have some friends from college, but I haven't seen them much because of COVID, of course. So all of those reasons, I guess, going together.
Gotcha. Fair enough. What are some of the things you do with the gamers? Do you have any favorite activities or events? And my editor has included the note, and why is it drag race?
Well, I mean, I feel like didn't pick the event I actually run. So I do run trivia, which is right now has been every other week. And I think I'm about to, I guess this is an official announcement now that I'm going to move it to being monthly now. I had mentioned it to people who come before. Basically, it's just obviously new gaming information only comes out at so fast, at so much. There's only so many things I can do without repeating. And also, as COVID will start to die down, I don't expect people to be online as much and maybe start to transition to more in-person things that will both take up my time and theirs.
Sure.
So that's kind of where that's all at. I also do the league events weekly, and I used to watch the drag with the group. My boyfriend, to be completely honest, prefers just watching it with just the two of us. Like we live together now, so we just kind of put it on TV and watch it together. He's not super into people having. He doesn't like commentary too much, to be honest.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
Reasonable. So tell us a little bit about trivia. Where did you get the idea to run it? Sort of where the format comes from.
Okay, so back in college, they actually did this every 2 weeks, or not every 2 weeks, every week it was. But there was different people who ran it, so they alternated, so they didn't have to do it every week. So in college, they set it up at our school restaurant. So it's like a counter service place we had. So you kind of go up and order and then get the food. It's part of the meal plan. It's part of the meal plan. You got a whole special thing. It's complicated, but anyways, they did it in a pretty similar format, except it was live. So they had printed out sheets you did most of your answers on and stuff. But the whole weighting of points and how the categories work and going over them, those were all taken from that. And even some of the ideas, but not all of them, because of course they were a bit more broad, where I try to keep mine a bit nerdy and pander to my audience and also myself. Yeah.
Gotcha. Fair enough. So Mevin also asks, do you like trivia board games? Do you have a favorite one of those?
Oh, that's fair. I haven't actually done that many trivia board games. I feel I don't have enough. I wouldn't have that many people to actually play them with in person, especially because of COVID now. But realistically, we didn't. And also in college, we didn't, because we'd actually just go to trivia night. And I think that fulfilled our need, going up to once a week. Of course, we didn't go every week. We went like every few or so.
Sure. Fair enough. So I like to ask this question, though I think it's a heavy and sometimes difficult question, but I've enjoyed asking it in every fresh face that I've done. Do you think there's any way that you'd like to see Boston Gamers change or grow in the future? Is there anything you want?
I think overall, I'm fairly satisfied as things go. I'm going to be interested to see how things transition back to having real events. I do think that we've lost a little bit of the pickup games. Like the only pickup game I see usually is League. But oh, okay. Sorry, I was reading the chat.
Sure.
But I think that's kind of where I feel on that. Like I don't have too much I would change. I think it's overall going pretty smoothly for everything that's going on.
Gotcha. Fair enough. All right, so we will pivot, and before we close out here, let's talk a little bit about entertainment. Are you more a movie person or a television person? Both? Neither? What's sort of what's your
Um,
preference there?
I think usually I would say I watch a bit. I do a little bit more of TV shows. I also do like books. I haven't read anything super recently, although I have a few recommendations that I'm fairly excited to start. I'm just waiting for. There will eventually be a day where it's like I'm not doing anything. Like I don't have something that I'm going to go back to. Like I'm not currently playing a game that I'm invested in or something like that. And that's when I'll do it, which will. And then once I read one book, I'll probably read like a whole bunch of them in a slew. I used to read them on the way to work, but since that's not applicable, I haven't been.
Gotcha. What are some of your favorite books then? What have you read that's great?
So I really liked, which goes back to probably even high school. Yeah, I really liked reading through the Shadowhunter books, which they made into movies and stuff. It was probably the first series. I think, it was the first series I read that had like very explicit gay characters instead of just implied, kind of slightly implied in a way that it can get past censors and stuff. Um, I know that the author actually said that at the time when she was publishing the first one, or I don't remember if it was the first one or second one, where things introduced that to a larger extent, that she got some like pushback about it, and she kind of like said, "Do it anyways." um, so that was kind of nice to see. Um, yeah, that's probably I'd say my favorite series that I've read. I've read a bunch of different things though. I've read Game of Thrones most of it. It was kind of like a whole thing where it's like I already knew what was going to happen, so it was kind of hard to read. Um, and then I read Mistborn. I have a lot from when I was in high school, so those are a little bit different. My mother had me read Twilight when she was reading it, so she'd have someone to talk to about it. So it turns out I think of the three people who were reading it, of the two other people and I who were guys who I knew who read it, and this was back in like middle school for me. Me and one of them are gay, and the other one left after middle school, so I haven't really talked to him since, but I wouldn't be surprised. So just kind of like funny. I'm like, oh wow, we're all stereotypes, aren't
we? Fair enough. And what's good as far as television goes? What are your all-time favorites there?
So one of my favorite things is just low effort things that I can put on while I'm playing a game that doesn't require all my time. So things like watching through things like Archer that are just like I can put it on. And if I miss a plot point, I really don't care. Have been a lot of my TV lately. I watched all of Parks and Rec recently. I had seen a few episodes before and finally went through it all, so that was good.
That specific mention amuses me greatly because all I can think about when you mention Twilight is the guy who wants to put a copy of Twilight in the Pawnee time capsule.
The time capsule.
It's a great cross reference right there.
Why does it need to go in there? Because it's very important to our culture.
Fair enough. So I have a couple of really good questions in the chat. I want to hit both of them, even though they're a little bit broader, so they don't slot in perfectly. But I think they're good questions, so I'm going to use them anyway. So first of all, Halinthier asks, your genre fave in general, sci-fi or fantasy? Which one's better for you?
I do like both. I do. Is this for? I guess just in general. So like, I really liked the old Battlefront 2. When I was a kid, the Conquest mode was like amazing to me because it was like, I guess it is kind of like a precursor to those hybrid games of like partially grand strategy and partially not really real time in any way, but just kind of having the larger screen and then the smaller battles. And I really liked that concept. So
Sure.
I do have a lot of like for sci-fi, but I will say that most of what I've been doing recently has been fantasy. But I think that's just more coincidental than anything else.
Sure.
Yeah, I watched all like Clone Wars and stuff like that.
I will because I'm not in the chat, and if I were in the chat, I would be the nerd pointing out that Star Wars is like a little bit science fantasy,
Yeah.
more than it is sci-fi. But that's I think all the better for your answer, because it's sort of the crossover of the two genres. So it makes sense if your position is that you like them both about equally, that Star Wars sort of falls in the middle of them, right? The other really great question that I got is from NailXB, who asks, "What's your favorite high fantasy universe?"
I do really like. So one of my favorite things about any like media, from like books to movies to shows, is I like the idea of that you kind of set things up and the plot kind of flows from there. That it's really important to kind of just say like, this is naturally what would happen as it goes on. So in that regard, the Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire is a really good one. I don't know. I like a lot of them, and I really like, and because I'm a nerd and I'm also a history nerd, I do like reading all of the background lore on tons of different fantasy worlds. Like I've only played the Total War of the Warhammer games, and I've read so much like ridiculous amounts of all the lore on all of it. So I like that one too. But anything that's like super well developed and like in depth in lots of different ways is great. It is hard to choose just one though.
Fair enough. I think that's totally reasonable. Pan Anime actually asks, "Are there any upcoming TV or movies that you're excited for? Anything that's going to be released?"
That's, so I do have to. Oh, at the point of being mocked, when I was a little Chinese child, I really liked, and this is the first reason I should have known I was probably by stereotype rules gay, was I really liked Wings Club, and they're making that live action, and like that comes out like really soon, like this week I think or something. And that's such a, it's such. I'm sure it's going to be kind of bad, but I'm kind of like really interested to see what that's like. What else I'm going to watch soon? I think I still need to watch the new season of Umbrella Academy. I kind of forgot about it. I was really busy when it first came out. Oh yeah, I should watch WandaVision too. Like there's a lot of things that I need to
Sure.
watch and then don't.
Fair enough. All right. So, what video games have you been playing? What's on the docket for those?
Okay. So I've been playing a bit of this recently. They constantly make expansions for this game, including the faction I'm playing as is a new one. So that's like this particular leader is the race itself is not new to the game. Europa Universalis 4 is my probably most houred game. So that one I've been playing a bit of. And my recent campaign has been as like uniting a northern Italy country. The game goes from 1444 to like 1820, and you can play as any country that existed in the world at that time. So it's really cool. Like you can play as like a small Native American country. You can play as like somewhere in like the middle of the Congo. And that's what I really like about that game is it's kind of like cool how like they include so much detail in the whole world. It's also fun. They have a mod to make it from the year 0 to now, and you can just kind of scroll through the world and see it change, which is
Interesting.
really cool. And then what I'm actually playing, I guess, like as a reoccurring play, as a, like a playthrough, is the Final Fantasy VII remake on my boyfriend's PS5.
Gotcha. That was certainly very popular. What elements do you think have to be present to create a great video game?
So again, I really like I said with the other thing, the world building is really important. Um, I think as I've grown older, the combat system has also become more important because when I was earlier or younger, I didn't really like care as much because I don't think I had been exposed to too many. But now it's like if you get a bad like combat or repetitive system, that can get really bad really fast. Like you kind of just get boring of it. Um, the plot being good is important, but I feel like enough of the population skips the plot that it's not really that important, as important as many people will say. But yeah.
Sure. Fair enough. And then what is the quirkiest video game you've ever played, or is there a video game with a quirk that made it interesting to you?
Um, now I have like the urge just to open my Steam library and see what things I've played. Um, hmm. I can't really think of anything. Like, still, like my grand strategy games are probably the weirdest thing in terms of not many people play them. But like, I mean, I played like some indie games. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think I have a better answer right now about anything with a particularly weird quirk.
That's totally reasonable. Especially just based on what you've said that you mentioned. I mean, Total War is kind of inherently quirky by marrying grand strategy perfectly with real-time strategy, right? So I think that alone is kind of a quirk. It's a popular one now because it's existed for long enough that people like the idea. But certainly that is quirky in its own right. So I think with that, it brings us to the end of the questions that I had here today. So I want to say thank you first and foremost to you, Drew, for hanging out with me tonight and chatting and doing this whole thing. I really appreciate it. I think, in particular, as I've said several times, I think doing a fresh face interview is significantly more intimidating, and I have been grateful that everyone I have asked has agreed to do it. Everyone's been a good sport about it, so I appreciate that. I also want to extend a thank you to Zach/Headnisk, who runs the technology for this whole thing and makes it easy instead of a huge pain in the butt that it would be without him. Could not appreciate that more. Big thanks go out to Oni every time we do this. They edit the script. Tonight they edited it in 30 minutes because I was running late. And I swear, like, I come out with a script that is like a 6 or 7 or 8 out of 10, and Oni manages to take it to a 9 or a 10 every time. There's no better editor that anyone could ask for than that. So I deeply appreciate that. I always throw out a thanks to all the mods and planners who let me do this crazy nonsense all the time. I always appreciate that. And then last but certainly not least, I want to say thank you to our audience. You come out here, you keep the chat moving so quickly I can't read it all, which is actually wonderful. Makes me happy every time. Thank you so much for coming. There's no one else I'd rather be spending this Saturday night with than you. I'm glad that apparently in one way or another, there's no one you'd rather be spending the Saturday night with than us as well. So with that, do you have any final words for our audience, Drew?
Nope.
Fair enough. Well, have a good night. Drive safe all the way from your couch back to wherever you're going, and take care.
Good night, everyone.